Thanks for coming out this afternoon. Welcome to the Smarter Balanced Tools for Teachers Back to Basics webinar. We really appreciate you coming out today. I know it's a busy time of year right now, not only just in schools in general, but because of testing. And I know you making the time we're grateful for your attendance. I am joined here this afternoon by several of my colleagues from the Performance Office, Kim Johnson and Michelle Rosado. I'm also joined here, Michelle, Kim, do you want to say hi or do the old wave? Yeah, I see. There you go. And then also from Smarter Balance, the experts coming in, Tina Posner, Jason Varco, and Sarah Burge. I'll be turning it over to them in a few minutes. So thanks, Tina and Jason and Sarah, for jumping on. We also might be joined by a Connecticut educator who is an expert at tools for teachers, Maureen Curran from West Hartford, and she's going to drop in. Hopefully, she's unfortunately teaching still this afternoon, but she's going to drop in towards the end of the webinar to tell us about some of her favorite things about tools for teachers. So, a couple things about the webinar. Number one is I'm about to drop the deck into the chat, so you have the deck, a PDF of the deck. Secondly, if you have any questions, you can feel free to drop them in the chat. If you're feeling really ambitious, you can also do the raise your hand, and we'd be happy to take you off mute, and you can ask it. And I had one more thing, but I'm forgetting it, so we'll just move on. Enjoy the webinar. So I'm going to turn it over to Tina from Smarter Balanced, who's going to kick us off with the beginning of the slide deck here.
Well, Tina? Thank you. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to share about Smarter Balanced Tools for Teachers. I'm going to give a overview of how Tools for Teachers fits into the Smarter Balanced assessment system, and you can go to the next slide and I'll talk through the agenda. And then we're going to talk about how this supports formative assessment. We'll give you some information about Connecticut reports on how this worked out for people who used the formative interims for formative assessment. And then we'll show you specifically how you get to the Interim Connections playlist from the interim reports, the Tools for Teachers resources, how to put it together. And then we'll walk you through a couple of use cases that will really show where the rubber meets the road for teachers. And then we'll open it up for questions. But if there's anything that is confusing along the way, as Abe said, please raise your hand. I don't mind being interrupted at all. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the graphic that shows the whole Smarter Balanced ecosystem. Summative assessments, which you're probably engaged with now, are where we began based on the state standards. Interim assessments are built from the same item pool as the summative assessments, so there's a high alignment between them. And then Tools for Teachers offers resources that give you an opportunity to supplement instruction based on the information that you gather about students' needs from the interims. And this whole wheel turns around teaching and learning, which is our mission. And hopefully the work that we do helps you get students ready for college and career. So that's what this graphic represents. And we'll go to the next slide. So for us, the balance in balanced assessment is formative assessment, because on the summative side, you get that information at the end of the year when instruction is done. That gives you information that you can use for decision making around resources and what to do for the next year. But formative assessment is given during the instructional period and allows you to adjust in real time to meet students' needs. And according to the Center for Educational Resource and Innovation, this is the most important intervention for promoting high performance ever studied. And it makes sense because the information that you get from formative assessment helps you meet students' individual needs. It moves toward greater equity of student outcomes if you can do that, and it helps you prepare students in a meaningful way. So, so that is the balance in balance assessment, and we'll talk more about it. Next slide. Okay, what do we mean by formative assessment? A lot of people. Oh, this is one of those slides where you click twice to get the graphic. Is that right? Yeah, there you go. So this is the graphic that we use to represent formative assessment, and we treat it as a process rather than treating it as a tool. So when you think about formative assessment as a process, we talk about the steps: clarify, elicit, interpret, and act. Clarify is about clarifying learning goals. Eliciting is to find out what students know and can do. And interpreting is when the educator considers the information about what students can know and do and figures out what the next step should be. And then act is taking those steps with further instruction. So this is the process that turns. And next slide. Oh, it's just going to keep turning infinitely. There you go. And so in order to support this process for finding out what students need during the year, we offer these interims in different sizes, and they're helpful for suiting your purpose. So the smallest block is the focused interim assessment block, and that will be easy to slot inside of instruction. You'll be able to see, based on the standards that are being assessed, where that best fits. Then interim assessment blocks are a slightly larger grouping of skills, and that might match better at the end of a unit. And then there's the interim, the ICA, or the interim comprehensive assessment, and that is the same length and breadth of assessment as the summative is. And some people might use that in the beginning of the year to benchmark, to see how progress was made over the year. These interims share the same rigor and testing environment with the summative assessments. Most of them don't require hand scoring, the performance tasks do. The educators can choose between standard and non-standard administration for these, and they can be used with individuals, groups, classes, or school or district-wide. They also offer the same accessibility tools as the summatives do, and that can be helpful in terms of getting students comfortable with these features that they will use in the summative, so that it doesn't draw their attention away. They can focus on showing what they know. Next slide, please. So in talking to people who have used these interims and have found success with them, these are the reasons why that they like them: is the predictive validity. Because the interims are so highly aligned to the summative, you get a sense of how students are doing toward grade level standards, and it gives you time to make adjustments in instruction. There's a lot of quality information and assessment transparency included with our interims. You can see the interim questions, the blueprint by which they were created. The reports give specific information down to students' individual responses and provide distractor analysis. This allows educators to group students with similar needs and correct common misconceptions. As I mentioned, the interim administration, if it's done in a standardized way, rehearses the summative process before the end of the year, and teachers and students can both feel more confident moving into the summative because they've practiced it, and they can use the pay attention to the question itself and not how the formatting is. And then there's a boost for curriculum involved. Using assessments that are built into the curriculum only gives you a sense of how well students have learned the curriculum. If you give a Smarter Balanced interim instead, you might surface places where the curriculum has a gap in skills or is not rigorous enough to meet the goals that students will have at the end of the year. We found this in one of our demonstration sites at Salem Kaiser in Oregon, where the teachers found that the curriculum was teaching text structure in a different way than it was being assessed. And this was an opportunity for them to say, oh, we need to supplement our curriculum in that spot so that students will be able to answer this question. And so that's a real advantage to using the Smarter Balanced interims as part of your during the year assessment story. Next slide. And then these two, the next two slides are basically highlighting the report that on Connecticut results. So there was a phase one report in 2020 that showed that students who took 4 or more of these interims during the year did substantially better on the summative than students who took fewer than 4 or no interims. And this was exciting results for us to learn. And then in the next slide, you can see that this was replicated in a subsequent study in 22-23. The data confirmed the same thing, that students who took 4 or more of these were doing substantially better. And we do have a caveat that these are descriptive results, and we can't, it's not the same as a research study. It's a report that shows what happened. There's an opportunity, I think, for us to dive in and do additional research here. And now I want to talk about how these interims connect to tools for teachers. I always like to start with the bigger picture because otherwise sometimes people don't understand how tools for teachers is meant to fit in here at Smarter Balanced, because you initially know us as the people who have developed the summative. So now that I've sort of like created this bigger picture and talked a little bit about using the interims to collect information on student needs, I'm going to show how that connects to the resources that are in tools for teachers. Next slide. So assuming that you're going to choose an interim, you will get a report. This is from the Smarter Balanced sandbox. So this represents how the report looks in Smarter Balanced. We have different test providers, and I believe you have Cambium, Abe, in Connecticut. So you would get potentially Cambium reports. So they may not look exactly like this. So I want to say your local mileage may differ. But you would get you would get some kind of report, and you would be able to get a view of the results. You can click the next slide if you like. And this is what the top level looks like in the reports. And you'll notice on the bottom right, there's a link to instructional resources. In Cambium, the link might be someplace else. I think there's a pull down menu that might have access to the link there. Next slide. But one of the things that you might want to consider when you're so this takes you through to the ICP. The ICP is the Interim Connections playlist, and this is associated with the interim that with the same series of skills. And I think if you click again, you'll get the text that goes alongside this. I didn't realize these were so clicky. So one of the things that the Interim Connection playlist will show you is a progression chart that gives you the characteristics of what students are likely to know if they score below, near, or above on the interim. This is already helpful to educators with regard to differentiating instruction, because if you get a little snapshot of what students likely know, you'll know where to begin with instruction. If you want more instruction and are open to doing a supplemental lesson, there are links to the very skills that are on the interims that take you to pre-prepared lessons and tools for teachers. These are created by teachers for teachers and vetted by Smarter Balance, so it's much better to use those than to just do a random internet search for lessons that you need. Next slide, please. And in addition to that progression playlist, the progression chart that has the links to lessons, there's other resources here too for For suggestions for intervention, you can pick these up and use these without having to do a supplemental lesson if you just need a quick hit. For things to consider, you can dive deeper into the subject matter and see other related playlists. And one more slide to say what's on here is we also connect back to the interim so that there is a way to have a sort of reciprocal look. Like you're at the interim, you see the report, you see how students have done, you've come here, you see the resources, you can click back into the interim and have and you can look back to see what they exactly were asked in case you want to refine your instruction around that. And then we also offer the academic language, which is really important because not all curriculum uses the same academic terms as we use on the summative assessment. So you might find that students are being instructed to look at the big idea or the main idea, and then on the test, they'll see central idea. They're not experts in the content area. They don't know that these things are synonymous. They may wonder, oh, is this the same thing? And then it becomes interruptive for them to show what they know. So sewing together the language of instruction and the language of assessment is a really good practice to make sure that students are you're getting the most accurate picture of what students know. Next slide, please. I think just keep clicking till you get the full slide. Thank you. It should look like all right. So there's an image from the Interim Connections playlist start page on that. Yeah, there you are. This is what it looks like when you want to see more about the Interim Connections playlist. So this is just a resource for you, and hopefully you'll have all the links that you need because Abe has already shared the deck with you. Can we navigate back to the deck? We're at slide 24, I believe. There you are. Yeah. Smart support for writing. Okay, next slide. Right. And here, the SMART tool is something that I wanted to point out as well, because the SMART tool was created to aid in scoring writing. And so it can be used to calibrate among scorers, but it also has potential for instructional purposes as well. Being able to see what the rubric is for scoring helps educators and students alike know what's being expected of them. And then it's possible to do a version of the rubric that's student facing so that students can use that information for their own revisions during the writing process, self-assessment, and peer review. And it's also possible to share expectations of grade level reading and writing with the samples that are attached to the rubric so that everybody is clear about what they're aiming for. And we understand that the writing conditions on a test are not the same as the writing conditions when you're in the writing process itself. But this is but it's good, I think, for everybody to have a picture of the grade level expectation. And then so that those are the places where the interims and tools for teachers connect. And now I'm going to move into the place where we are just inside of tools for teachers and those resources. So on the next slide, we have over 700 resources in ELA and math for grades 3 through high school. Science is also available with thanks to California for adding that. Lessons include the formative assessment strategies, accessibility strategies, differentiation ideas, and support for English learners. As I mentioned, all the resources are reviewed thoroughly for bias and fairness and accuracy. The lesson, so next slide, the lessons were created at State Network of Educate with the help of State Network of Educators. They have created and reviewed the instructional resources and tools for teachers. Educators from every member state territory were invited to participate. They have various content area, grade level area expertise, and Smarter Balance provides them with professional learning around assessment literacy, formative assessment, accessibility, and more. We're committed to continuous improvement for these resources. And so we are continuing to improve them and make them more teacher friendly. So if you are one of those people who answered that you're a master in tools for teachers, I hope you'll be really excited to see the coming changes. We'll have a new user interface that is more helpful. The lessons have been adjusted to fit 20 minutes, which is the amount of time that the teacher said worked best for reteach. Some lessons are longer, but we'll have indication in the overview when that happens, and we'll make suggestions when possible about how a lesson might be split over multiple sessions. We've made the lessons more concise and easier to preview and scan so that teachers can either decide if it's right for them to teach more quickly, and even more helpful to have it scannable when you're teaching so that you can quickly refer to bulleted items and keep your place. And then we offer more support now for English learners with language goals and language success criteria, which is also a benefit for many students who need support in that area. Oh, look, Maureen's here. I'm rounding. I'm getting ready, to move toward use cases. And Abe, you please tell me, like, for the purposes of time, when you need to shift over to Maureen, okay?
Yeah, I think we're doing fine on time, Tina, and I think the use cases are really important. So Maureen, I see a drop in. We'll touch base in a few minutes.
Okay, great. So I'll just carry on here so we can make sure we have a lot of time for Maureen. So the formative assessment strategies are really helpful to teachers. These are ways that, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, teachers can get a sense of what students know and can do. So these activities are designed to collect that information, and teachers can use that information to make adjustments in real time during the lesson. I think you have to click through to get the picture and then to the next one. And then we also build in accessibility strategies, and this is important to have equitable access to the content by removing barriers. It also supports teachers who have students that have IEPs or Section 504 plans. So that's helpful too. And then also in Tools for Teachers, we have professional learning resources that offer implementation training on the Smarter Balanced resources and tools that explore deeper learning on grade level expectations. We have some social emotional learning resources, some support for homeschool connections. And we're going to be doing more with connecting the assessment curriculum and instruction together for planning on how to use the interims coming soon. Look for that. Putting it all together, these formative assessment resources help uncover student needs. The instructional resources help meet those needs. The assessment literacy tools are useful and transparent, and the professional learning resources support teachers and professional learning communities. And now I'd like to turn this over to Sarah Berger, who will talk through 2 different use cases of how educators use tools for teachers.
Great. Thank you so much, Tina. Can everyone hear me okay? I see some nods.
Yep.
So these are some use cases. Abe, I'll do one, and then if we're worried about time, just give me a wink and we can skip the second if we have to. So next slide, please. Interesting. Could you hit the next button? I feel like there should be more text on this screen. There we go. Okay. So this is an example of an educator starting with an interim assessment. So Ms. Ortiz is teaching 6th grade, and she and her colleagues in the 6th grade have decided to put a little bit of an emphasis on writing, which we know is a challenge for a lot of our students. And so they decide that they are going to give one of our interim assessment blocks halfway through a unit. This is aligned with their goals and standards, and they were able to see that really easily because of all the information that we have. And they decided that they wanted to use this instead of an existing assessment. It could also be complementary to an existing assessment. So they opted to do this focused IAB right here, write and revise explanatory texts. Next slide, please. I have to click one more time. Okay, so they gave this, and then they got their scoring report. As Tina mentioned, your scoring report might look slightly different, but you will be able to access this same information. And so she's able to look at it and say, okay, here's my group of students who haven't yet met this standard. And the report also contains a link to relevant instructional resources. So next slide, please. So she's able to go right from her student reports to what we call a playlist or an ICP. There's a lot of different things on the ICP, but what I think of as one of the most useful parts is these student performance progressions. So you can see in this screenshot that we've got descriptors of below, near, and above. So just that on its own is like a very rich tool for a teacher or a PLC. But we also have a linked lesson. And the linked lesson here is Game On, Take This Introduction. So next slide, please. So Ms. Ortiz takes a look at this resource. She's like, yep, this is like very tightly aligned to this little skill that I think my kids need. She pulls her small group. She does the lesson with them. It's got accessibility. It's got formative assessment. It has supports for English learners. And this allows her to keep all of her students moving towards proficiency. So next slide, please. And so let's say that, she delivers the lesson and she's like, I think some of these kids are still struggling, right? Like we know I was a classroom teacher for a long time. There are kids who need more than one reteach. And especially for a busy teacher, trying to think about what that reteach looks like for tier 1 instruction, if we're talking 2 or 3 kids, can be both mentally taxing and who has the time? So another aspect of those playlists are the suggestions for intervention. So Ms. Ortiz doesn't need to be like, right, these 5 kids still aren't getting it. What do I do? Here's a list of instructional moves and suggestions that she could take to support that cohort of students. So next slide, please. All right, so before we go into use case 2, I just wanted to check and see if there were any questions about this first use case, where we began with an interim and went all the way through to instruction. Okay, great. If questions come up, feel free to bump in. So use case 2 is going to show a teacher who begins with classroom observation, right? That's a very valuable tool to try and understand what our students need. You don't have to give an interim to take advantage of all the things that Tools for Teachers has to offer. So Mr. Saeed is like, I think some of these kids are struggling with attributes of two-dimensional shapes. So he goes right to a playlist. And again, he's got these really clearly laid out student performance progressions that help him sort of fine tune, like, what might be the blocker for this kid who can't do this skill. Next slide, please. So actually, I'm so sorry. Abe, would you mind going back to the previous slide? I meant to highlight. So you guys can see right here, under the topic categories of shapes, there's some lessons listed. And this one actually has 2. Some have 1, some have 2. You can pick. So after looking at these, he's like, right, here's a lesson. Next slide. And one more. Yep. He looks at them and he's like, sorting shapes. This lesson is going to get my kids what I need, and I don't have to make it, and I don't have to prep for it. He can use the features in the upper right-hand corner to make some notes about it in case he wants to use it again. And he prints out the lesson. Once it's printed out, if, like Mr. Saeed, you and your educators want to customize it and change the worksheet and tweak the slides, we encourage that. Remix, rehash, use a part of it. Those are all wonderful ways to take what's been made and make it your own. So he's got his lesson, he's ready to go. Next slide, please. And one more. And he gives his lesson, he's like, great, but I want to check and see if the kids got it. I want to make sure I'm completing that formative assessment process where I'm like interpreting student learning. So he uses another smarter tool that Tina talked about, the Interim Assessment Item Portal, or IAIP, which is not the best acronym. And he prints an item from that to use as an exit ticket, hands it to his kids, and then he can tell if students understood this concept or if they didn't. He doesn't need to make this question or worry about, is it rigorous enough? Is it standards aligned? This is a way to assess student learning that's been made by the people at Smarter so that educators don't have to do that legwork. And I believe, Abe, that might be our last slide of the use cases.
Mm-hmm.
It is. So again, if there's any questions people want to ask right now, I'll defer to Abe if we have time. But otherwise, I will hand it back over to Tina.
If there are any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or raise your hand. You can certainly come off mute too.
Right, and we just have some links with additional resources there for you if there's anything you want to explore. And you should be able to also click through, I believe, from the slides that Abe made, that Abe shared. And we are happy to take your questions, thoughts, any feedback at all.
Okay, thanks, Tina. Thanks, Sarah. I don't see any questions coming in, but I know Maureen Curran dropped in from West Hartford. Maureen is a frequent flyer. Well, thank you for the feedback. Maureen's a frequent flyer with Tools for Teachers. And I know we wanted to get some sort of boots on the ground feedback on things. And Maureen, I know you didn't have a PowerPoint, but I know you wanted to say a few things about what you liked about Tools for Teachers, and it means a lot to hear from you. So if you want to say a few words, we'd love to hear your thoughts on things. You have to come off mute. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you should be able to unmute and put your camera on.
Your camera's on, Maureen. We can see you, but the mute button is not working. At the top of Teams, it says mic. Is there a line through that? Can you try hitting that? And that's off. Okay, well.
And you can drop and try to come in on your phone if you have the app on there. So sometimes that can be a solution. So if you want to try to do that. We don't have her muted actually. So, because she came in as a presenter, but thank you.
Is she trying on her phone, Michelle? Looks like it, yeah.
I think so.
So I don't know if you have any, if there's any, as we wait for Maureen, one of the basic things that the basic questions we often get is how do you even access directly to tools for teachers? And if you do have a Tide account, which I assume everybody here does, your tools for teacher access is one of the applications in the top left when you log into Tide on the home page. So you would drop down using, if you're looking to go to the test delivery system, or you're looking to go to one of the other, I see Marie chatting in here, any of the other CAI systems, and that would allow you to get directly into tools for teachers, because there's a authentication through your Tide login into tools for teachers. So there is no separate site. It's directly through Tide. And again, I imagine most, if not all of you, have a login to Tide just because you're probably doing testing for students. If not, talk to your DA, and I'm sure they would be able to provide you with a Tide account. Hey, Maureen.
Dave, I'm here now.
Oh, you are? Yeah. Good.
Yeah, sorry. On my work computer, it just would not let me unmute, and I couldn't even type in the chat. So,
sorry about that. Well,
that's okay.
You're on. I don't know if you had heard me sort of segueing in from Tina and Sarah's presentation. Did you catch what I said? You could probably hear, right?
Yes, I could hear.
Yeah. So we were just passing the baton to you I don't know if you had some words about endorsing the use and things that you found useful for tools for teachers.
Yeah, so a few of the things that I've done is I presented this to my own district to help them navigate a little bit of the tools for teachers. I've written a few of the resources that are on there also. But also, well, I used to be a second grade teacher, and what I would do was I would tag on some of the resources, like you were talking about the interim playlist, where I would go in and I would select that below level for some of my higher second graders. I found that really useful to like do some of those lessons in small group. Some of the suggestions I've given to some of the teachers in my building have been to, you know, you're going to be out, you're doing a lesson on da-da-da. We have that on the Tools for Teachers website, so you can leave like a detailed list. You know, it's very well written out step by step for your substitute teachers, you know, so that you're not just leaving, you know, some work that you're like, oh, I'm not really sure that the substitute could do this, because it's really well written. And then I've also used it. I've recently transitioned over to special ed, where I teach kindergarten through 5th grade now, and I've been using it to teach some of my groups. So I recently went onto the Tools for Teachers. I typed in, I was looking for a 3rd grade lesson, particularly on triangles with angles. I typed all that information in, and it popped up with like 2 or 3 lessons that I could use. So I went and looked through both lessons, and I was like, oh, I can use this to work with this group. So then I pulled off, and I recently made copies. not sure where I left them, but the one that I was doing on triangles with angles had some great pieces that I could use like in my students' math notebook. I was able to teach part of the lesson and he was able to use some of the worksheets that were on there. And then he goes, oh, I've seen stuff like this before. So he made that connection to the learning he was doing in his classroom. And then I've also been able to direct the teachers to the other assessments on there for them to use. So I've done some work with looking at the FIABs with the teachers in PLCs, and then saying, oh, well, you know, students still not mastering this. Let's go on the tools for teachers, find lessons that may help us to teach that. So going back there. So those are some of the things I've done with the Tools for Teachers website.
Thank you, Maureen. Any questions for Maureen's thoughts there, how she uses it? Again, one of the reasons we went to, we put this workshop out, or this webinar rather, is because we had people not even realizing this was a thing. And this is part of our Connecticut subscription for Smarter Balanced. It's not free for us, it's free for you at the district level, access to the lessons and so forth. And so we often get questions like, where did this come from and how do I get to it? And it's been around for years. And I know some teachers like Maureen have taken advantage of it and are using it. And we wanted to encourage the use of this to kind of drop in and let you know that this is here and it is filled with resources. Tina, how many lessons total are there? Almost 1,000, you said?
For ELA and math, it's over 700 resources, but there's also additional resources for science that California has given everybody access to. There's also professional learning resources, and there's also the formative assessment strategies and accessibility strategies. So it's 700 lessons plus.
Thank you. Thanks, Tina.
And I suggest people just go on and like search out. Like it's pretty easy to go back and forth and find different things that you need as you need them. Say you, like I said, I needed something for triangles, wanted to give something a little bit more, and I just typed it in the search bar and it made it easy to find.
So I saw a couple comments drop into the chat. Yeah, we are recording this and we will post this and we can send it to you all after the workshop, or after the webinar rather. And then Mary Ellen, I see you dropped in a comment about using it for, higher level students in grade 2 needing something, needing some lessons for them. So thanks for that comment. All right, any other questions or comments for any of the Smarter team or Maureen this afternoon? Got about 10 minutes left, but we sure will give you 10 minutes back, and good luck for the remainder of the testing season rather, and let us know if you need anything. And again, thanks to our colleagues from Smarter today and Maureen also jumping on, helping out this afternoon. We'll hang around for a few minutes if you do have questions. Otherwise, have a good afternoon and be safe. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I don't know, Tina, I don't have a hard stop if you want to hang out and see if anyone has questions.
Yeah, I'm available.
Maureen, thank you for coming by. We appreciate your perspective.
Anytime. And good to see you, Sarah and Tina.
Oh, good to see you too. Thank you so much for the endorsement. We're always so pleased to hear that it's useful. We work hard to make it as good as we can.
Yeah, it's great. I have a lot of people come to me and say that they've used it and found good things on it. So great. Thank
I
you so
think
much. See you.
Oh, thank you so much, Maureen. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Right.
And I believe the answer to the recording question was yes. I think somebody asked that earlier.
Yeah. All right. Well, Tina, Sarah, thank you. I'm going to end the meeting here, and I'm sure we'll connect afterwards.